Wax and scorched skin. That's what I wake into. The stink of the man 2 places ahead, his forearm flat on the iron block, steam curling up off the meat of him. The brander doesn't hurry. His hands move like a clerk's, thumb and finger turning each wrist to the lamplight, pressing the rune stamp down, lifting it clean. A hiss. He steps to the next. Another wrist. Nobody screams. That's the part that doesn't fit. A whole line of us standing in the mud, and the loudest thing in the dark is hot iron kissing flesh. I look down at my own arm, and it isn't my arm. Wrong hands. Younger. Dirt packed under nails I never bit. The wrists are thin and roped, a farmhand's wrists. And the last thing the eyes in this skull ever saw was a yellow blade of steel coming through drywall. The bulldozer. My house. My name on the demolition order I'd spent 30 years learning how to break. Then I'm here, breathing, cold to the knees in this muck. The brander reaches the man right in front of me, presses, lifts. The skin closes over, smooth and finished, and the man just nods, like he agreed to the terms. He didn't. Nobody read them to him. Something behind my eyes comes open, and I can't shut it. It crawls up the whole queue like frost up a window, every sealed forearm suddenly stitched with text I shouldn't be able to see, clause stacked on clause, the dense, ugly grammar of a deed built to never be argued with. I know that grammar. God help me, I've drafted worse. The brander straightens, wipes the stamp on his apron, looks at me. Arm, he says, bored. One word like he's said it 400 times tonight, and means to say it once more before midnight closes the books. I give him the arm. Not because I want to, because his other hand is already locked around my wrist, and that grip belongs to a man who's never once had a stamp refused. The iron comes down. It doesn't seal. My brand hisses and spits and stays open, the rune burning, the lines crawling. And laid over the raw of it in that registry only I can read, the words flare. Most of them gray, settled, binding. One clause glows red. Not pink, not warning amber, red like a struck line in a deposition. Red like the ink I used to circle when some junior tried to slip a taking past a family who couldn't afford to fight it. A defect in the seal itself. And under all of it, a quiet little gauge I never asked for, ticked to 0, waiting. The brander frowns, leans his weight in, steam, no seal. Hold still, he mutters. I hold still. I read. 40 years of breaking other men's fine print stand up inside a dead farmhand's chest, because they branded me like livestock and forgot the one rule you never forget. You don't lay a contract in front of a lawyer and tell him to stop reading. Somewhere past the lamps, a bell tower coughs out the quarter hour, and the brander's jaw goes tight like he's the one on the clock now. It won't take, he says. Not to me, to the dark behind the lamps. Boots answer. A bigger man wades out of the smoke, leather apron, a ring of keys, a brass-cased clock hung off his belt. A warden. He doesn't ask my name. He drops a gloved hand on the back of my wrist and crushes it flat to the iron block until the new bone sings. 11 to midnight, he says, thumbing the clock face. Then the books close on this district. Seal him and move on. The brander lifts the stamp again. Steam, no bite. My forearm keeps crawling with text only I can read. Gray lines settling, one red clause smoldering through them like a coal under wet ash. So I read it, out loud. The bearer, being of the blood-bound estate, consents freely. Quiet, the warden says, and without coercion to the mark hereunto applied. I look up at him with this kid's borrowed teeth. Without coercion? You've got my arm welded to an anvil, friend. Strike the line. The brander presses harder. The rune flares and won't close. 10, the warden says. I keep going, because a clause, read aloud, is a clause that has to answer for itself. My tongue knows the next word before my eyes find it, then the next. The whole stiff spine of the grammar. Recital of estate, waiver of remedy. The little trap door where consent gets presumed. I'm not reading anymore. I'm reciting. I stop cold in the mud, because I know this hand, not the brander's, the drafting hand. The man who built these sentences loved a buried semicolon, a hinge he could never resist hiding. And I knew him, argued semicolons with him over bad wine for years. Aldous Crane. We wrote the master language together. I wrote the lock they just clamped on my wrist. 9, the warden says, and leans his weight onto the brander's shoulder to drive the iron down. Which means I know where it gives. Every clause we drafted had a seam, a fallback slipped in so the estate could never be sued for its own cruelty. We built it to protect them. Careful men cut their own door and then forget the door is there. The red line waits, third from the bottom. Provided the mark is set, I read, slow now, tasting it like the last clean line of a closing argument. By a sealing officer of competent 8, the warden's voice thins. Why won't it take? I almost laugh in his face. The iron's chewing a boy's arm, the night's draining out, and the answer sits right there in their own ink. And not one of the 400 before me could read a single word of it. I hold his eyes. I run my tongue to the broken edge of the clause. The bell starts again, paring the night down toward the close of the books, and I set my thumb on the red line and begin to take it apart. Of competent and uncoerced authority, I say, failing which, the mark is void from the first stroke. The warden's clock reads 7. His glove still pins my wrist to the block. Void, I tell him. Your own word, not mine. You crushed my arm flat to seal me. Coercion's stamped right into the act. The clause cancels the mark the second you forced it. Press, he snaps at the brander. The brander presses. The iron comes down on a boy's forearm, and for one breath, nothing in the world moves but the steam. Then I feel it. The heat backs off the metal, not blown out, withdrawn, the way a tide pulls sand out from under your heels, leaving the rune sitting on cold gray skin that won't drink it. The brander jerks his hand. It's... He turns the stamp to the lamp. The face has gone dull. It's cold. You melted my iron, the warden says, low. I read it your iron, I say. There's a difference. Ask the man who drafted it. Down in that registry only I can see. The red line stops smoldering. It doesn't fade. It strikes itself through, clean. A single ruled stroke across the consent recital. And every gray clause hung beneath it shivers loose like a row of pins pulled at once. The whole brand ungrammars itself in front of me. Settled becomes unsettled. Binding becomes blank. And the little gauge I never asked for, that quiet gauge ticked to 0. Clicks. 1 notch, off the floor. Freedom. 1. I laugh. I can't help it. It comes out of this kid's chest raw and wrong, and the warden flinches at the sound of a branded serf laughing on the block. 6, he says, because the clock is all he's got left. He grabs the brander's wrist and forces the dead stamp down himself, leather creaking, the brass clock swinging off his belt and knocking my knuckles. The rune sits on my skin and refuses him. No bite, no mark. Steam that isn't even steam anymore, just cold breath off cold metal. It won't take because it can't. I say. You can run that iron till midnight. Midnight closes the books on a void mark the same as an unsealed one. Either way, number 413 walks off this block unowned. He stares at me. 412 sealed behind me, smooth as deeds through a stamp, and the man cannot make 413. What are you? He says. Wrong question. He should have asked what they handed me. They took a dead lawyer, dropped him in a farmhand's bones, and clamped a contract on his arm written in the one hand on earth he'd know blind. The brand was the cage. The brand was also the key, because I helped cut it. The bell tolls down toward the close, and I feel the night I was built to die in slide off me like water. The warden drops his glove from my wrist, steps back, reaches not for keys, not for the iron, but for the horn at his hip, and blows it, calling the whole district's worth of wardens down on one unmarked boy. A man who blows a horn for help has already told you he can't finish the job alone. They drag me off the block before the note dies. 2 wardens, 1 on each arm, mud sucking at my heels. They haul me past the line of the freshly sealed and shove me through a gate of lashed rails. I go down on my knees in cold straw. And there it is, my first clean look at the thing that owns these people. A long pen, iron rings bolted to the posts, numbers seared into the top rail every few feet. 408, 409, 410. A slot waiting for every wrist they made tonight. Livestock with a number. That's the whole grammar of the place, and I read it in one breath. The survivors are packed against the far rail, 40-odd, maybe more, cradling forearms that still smoke in the cold. They watched an iron die on me. Nobody comes within reach. A girl with a scorched sleeve stares at my wrist like it might open its mouth. It didn't take, she whispers. No, I say. It didn't. They'll kill you for that. They'll file me first. I work my jaw to stop the kids' teeth knocking. Paperwork before the pitchfork, every time. An old man spits in the straw without looking at me. Quiet, 413. You'll bring them down on all of us. Too late for quiet. I can see the thing already moving through them, small and dangerous. They were promised fire, and they got cold metal, and you do not unsee that. Heads turn. The girl keeps watching my arm. Lamps bob along the rail through the dark. More wardens, called in by the horn, walking the line and counting. I count boots instead of minutes. The sky over the pen goes from black to the color of dirty milk, and the cold sinks all the way into this body's thin bones before anything changes. Then the gate bangs. 3 of them. Fresh, not winded, not the brass clock warden, new men with a lantern turned high and a roll of waxed cloth under one arm. They read numbers down the rail. They stop at me. This the void? That's the void. No iron. The lead man unrolls the cloth, and I see needles laid in a row, a little pot of black, a fresh stamp still bright at the face. When the heat won't bite, you mark a man by hand. They haul me up by the collar and walk me out of the pen, across frozen ruts, to a plank table set under a sagging awning. A thin man in gray waits there. Ledger open, quill already wet, an inkhorn steaming faintly in the chill. A sub-notary. Of course they keep one for the nights the fire fails. He doesn't look up. Number. Read it yourself. I let the kid's mouth curl. Oh, right. You can't. He dips the quill anyway and draws it toward the page, and I do the old courtroom trick without deciding to. I read his ledger upside down across the table. The column he's about to write me into isn't headed branded. It's headed forfeit. Forfeit I say, before the nib can land. Not branded. Forfeit. Funny word to spring on a man at dawn. Vel's hand stops. A black bead swells at the quill's tip and hangs there, trembling over the line he meant to draw through me. You read my book upside down. He says it flat, like a fault he'll note later. Sit. This is faster if you sit. It's faster if you do it right. The two markers behind me tighten their grip on the kid's collar. I feel the seams of a dead farmhand's shirt bite my throat. I let it. You're filing me forfeit for breaking something, so name it. Show me the standing text I broke. The quill comes down anyway. I knock the trestle with my knee, not hard, just enough to walk the inkhorn a finger toward the edge. Vel snatches it back. First time he's moved fast all morning. The mark failed, he says. A failed mark forfeits to the registry. That is the text. That's the result, not the text. Here's the thing about a man in gray at a plank table. He loves the book more than he hates you. You can't enter a forfeit against a standing law you won't cite. No clause, no column. I'll wager your own margins say so. Read me the founding line and I'll put my own wrist under your stamp. A marker laughs through his nose. Vel doesn't. His eyes flick to the lantern, to the three with the needles, to the survivors packed at the far rail behind us. 40 pale faces watching the boy argue with a quill. Witnesses. He hates that worse than me. You think you'll find a door in it, he says. I think you've never read it aloud in your life. I lean as far as the collar lets me. Prove me wrong. One line. Founding cadastra, opening recital. Or admit you're stamping me on a word you can't source. His jaw works. Then he turns 3 brittle pages back, to the front of the book, where the ink's gone brown and the hand is older than his, older than the warden's, older than the iron. He clears his throat, and he reads, By the founding of the district, all unclaimed labor within its bounds falls to the registry, to be held, marked, and recorded against the body that performs it. That's all I need. The words leave his mouth and land on the page in my second sight. Not letters now, deed grammar, the same crawling red I read on every sealed forearm tonight. I walk it the way I used to walk a condemnation order at 2 a.m. with a bulldozer idling outside my client's porch. All unclaimed labor falls to the registry. He keeps reading. I stop hearing him. My sight runs the line, word by word, the cold straw and the steaming inkhorn and the needles all sliding out to the edges. Held, marked, recorded. 3 verbs braided into one rope, and a rope has to be tied to something. I follow it back. Against the body that performs it. The body, not the wrist, not the number. The body that performs the labor. And the boy whose body this is hasn't performed a day of it for them. He died. I died. In a doorway under a yellow blade, and woke in this skin an hour before the iron. The clause owns labor done inside the district's bounds. My second sight catches on the join where that founding verb meets the thing it claims, and the join is loose, the way Crane's joins are always loose, because Crane drafts fast and trusts no one will read the seam. Vel's voice swims back up. Against the body that performs it. There, cited. He dips the quill, satisfied, and brings it toward the forfeit column. Now sit. One question. The markers haul, my knees scrape the trestle. I don't fight them. I'm grinning, and that's worse for everyone than fighting. Your founding law claims the body that performs the labor. This body's performed nothing for your registry, not an hour, not a furrow. The quill stops a hair above the page. So tell me, notary, what exactly are you forfeiting? Read on, then. Vel's chin lifts. He isn't finished with me. He wets his thumb, turns a single brittle leaf forward, and drops his nail under a fresh row of that old brown ink. Should any single provision fail of force, the remainder shall stand whole, and the registry's hold pass undiminished to the body in its keeping. He sits back. There. Your dead mark changes nothing. The rest holds. Sit him. He thinks he's buried me. One marker grunts approval and walks the collar needle a notch toward my pulse. I let the point kiss skin. I'm not watching the needle. I'm not watching Vel. I'm watching the line. My sight runs onto it and stops cold. Because I know that sentence. Not the way you know a statute. The way you know your own hand on a thing you'd pay good money to unsign. Should any single provision fail of force, the remainder shall stand whole and pass undiminished. Two verbs doing one verb's work. Whole and undiminished. Belt and braces. Because the boy who wrote it was too frightened to pick one. That boy was me. 24 years old, third week at the firm. 2 a.m, a partner bellowing down the hall for a severability clause before the dawn filing, and me at a borrowed desk with cold coffee scummed over, and both hands shaking, stuffing in every word I owned so that none of them could fall alone. He laughed when he read it back. Ugly, he said. Left it in. Ugly holds. It held. God help me, it held. Across a yellow blade through drywall, across my own dying, across whatever door dropped me into this mud. Comma splice and all, word for word, into the founding book of a district that brands children before breakfast. Crane didn't draft this seam. I did. A life ago. Terrified. Vel taps the page, impatient, ink drying on his nib. It is cited. Sit him down. That's the moment it turns over in my hands. He read my clause aloud. He has never once read it. None of them have. They've carried my words across who knows how many winters, like a saint's knucklebone in a box, kissed the lid, recited the shape of it, and never lifted the latch to see what I left ticking inside. A severability clause cuts the dead part away to save the whole. Fine. Unless the dead part is the very hook the whole thing hangs from. And then you cut, and the rest comes down with it, and there is nothing left for the registry's hand to close on. I built this door myself, by accident, at 2 a.m. in a life these people will never believe I had. And I am the only man at this table who can read the latch. I read it back to them, not loud, courtroom flat, the voice I used to bury developers in. The needle pauses at my pulse. Vel's quill hangs over the wet column, and a bead of brown ink swells on the nib and refuses to fall. You read me your founding seam, I say. Now hear it read right. I turn my head to the rail. The girl with the scorched sleeve is already watching me, has been watching my wrist since the straw went cold. Mara. Somebody down the line whispered it in the night. You, I say. Your arm, bring it here. She doesn't hesitate. That's the thing I'll keep. She shoulders off the rail, pushes through 40 held-breath bodies, and lays her marked wrist flat on Vel's planks beside mine. Get her back. Vel's chin jerks. A marker lets go of my collar and reaches for her. I talk faster than his hand. My sight drops onto Mara's brand and finds the same brown grammar, the same lazy crane join. The founding verb hooked clean through the dead provision. The one I wrote at a borrowed desk a life ago. Should any single provision fail of force, I take his own sentence and turn the edge around. The remainder cannot stand where the failed provision is the hook the rest hangs from. Pull the hook, the whole comes down, undiminished into nothing. I press my thumb flat over the seam on her skin. Your hold on this body failed from the first stroke. There is nothing beneath it to keep. The number on her wrist goes gray. Somewhere behind my eyes, a count I never asked for ticks over. 1 to 2. quiet as a latch. A marker swings a fresh iron down to bite the mark back into her. The iron dies on her skin, hisses, sulks, lays itself cold against the scar and takes nothing, the way mine took nothing in the dark. Mara makes a small sound, half a breath. She lifts her arm. Bare brown skin. No number on it at all. Vel is up off the bench, the quill snapped in his fist, ink streaked across his knuckles. Wardens. It comes out cracked. Wardens! To the table! Wardens! The rail wardens come at a run, boots sucking mud, halberds swinging level. Fast men. They reach the planks in seconds. Seconds too slow for the thing that mattered. Because 40 people heard me say it. And down the rail, in a voice scraped raw from a night of being counted, the boy with the split lip says the words back. Pull the hook. The hole comes down. Testing them in his mouth like a stolen coin. Then a woman beside him. Then a third, lower, fiercer. Vel hears it spread and goes the color of the dirty milk sky. You can drag a man back to a trestle. You can crush his wrists to the iron and run the clock. What you cannot do, what no warden with a halberd has ever once managed, is chase a sentence back into the mouths it's already loose in. Mine too. The boy with the split lip is already at the planks. He's shouldered past the nearest warden and slapped his forearm down beside Mara's, blood dried black at the corner of his mouth. The halberds hang mid-swing. Nobody certain who to gut first. I don't make him wait. My sight drops onto his brand and finds it. Same brown grammar, same lazy crane join. The founding verb hooked clean through the dead provision. Your hold on this body failed from the first stroke, I tell him. I'm pulling the hook. The mark grays under my thumb. Then it thins to nothing. Bare skin, a warden's iron coming down to re-bite it and dying cold against the scar, sulking, taking nothing. That makes 3, and the yard stops. I've stood in this exact silence before. It's the half-second after a judge reads a citation that turns the whole docket inside out, when every lawyer in the room recalculates at once, and not one of them dares breathe. Mud stink, frost on the rail, 40 mouths gone still. The wardens don't know whether to charge or run, so they stand there leaking steam into the cold. Then the freed crowd in. Mara first, then the boy, then a woman with a baby's weight still bowing her arms, though there's no baby, pushing toward the table, toward me, hands out like I'm a fire on a frozen morning. One old man gets there ahead of them, gray stubble, a notch missing from one ear. He grips my sleeve hard enough to pull the seam. Who do we say it to? His voice cracks raw. Whose iron is this? Give me the name. Who do we name? I don't, I start. He answers himself. He twists his own wrist up with a brand dyed cold an hour ago, and shows me not the scar, but the dead iron a warden dropped in the mud. Flips it butt up with his boot. There's a maker's stamp punched into the cold end. He reads it off slow, sounding the letters like a man who learned them late. Royal Notary, by warrant of the office of Crane. He looks up. Crane stamps every iron in this district. Every one. Crane. I've been saying that name all morning like it's a stranger's. Crane's hand, Crane's join. The other man's sloppy seam I got to clean up. Easy to hate a name with no face on it, but the old man says it whole, the way you say a name you've cursed across a lifetime. And something in the back of my skull I'd bolted shut comes loose. Aldous Crane. I knew an Aldous Crane, a life ago, before the yellow blade, before the mud, before any wrist of mine wore a number. I shook that man's hand across a borrowed desk while my coffee went cold, and he laughed at my ugly claws and told me it would hold. The frost is in my teeth. My stomach is somewhere under the planks. He didn't inherit my words. He carried them here on purpose. You think a yard full of halberds parts for a serf with no number? It does, when nobody's sure what cutting him costs. I stepped over Vel's empty bench. Mud pulled at my heel and let go. The brass clock ticked on behind me, done with its long night, and I put my back to it and walked for the railgate. Mara fell in at my shoulder. The boy with the split lip took the other side, matching me stride for stride, dragging the back of a bare wrist across his mouth. "Jas?" he said, like I'd asked. "Name's Jas." "Tomas." The wardens didn't move. A whole lane of them, steam rising off their collars, halberds half raised and going nowhere good. One big one tightened his grip as I came level. I stopped. I looked at the iron clamped to his belt. Crane's stamp on the cold butt of it, sure of itself. "Bite me with it," I said. "Go on." He didn't. Smart man. He'd watched 3 irons die at this table already, and he had no appetite to feed it a 4th. We walked through. Frost cracked under our boots, thin as eggshell over the cart ruts. Behind us, the old man with the notched ear was reading the dead iron's stamp aloud to anyone who'd hold still, sounding out, "Crane, crane," the only word he had left to grip. Here's what I carried out that gate. Hold it the way I held it. 1 clause. Mine. I was 24 and shaking when I wrote it, and it outlived the yellow blade, and it outlived me, and it came up out of this district's founding book, still breathing. The latch that drops the whole hold the moment you pull the dead mark. I'd fired it 3 times before breakfast. 3 irons lay cold in the mud to vouch that it cuts. Crane punched that mark on every iron from here to the Capitol gates. He thought stamping it made it his. He forgot who drafted the sentence underneath. Mara watched the side of my face. "Where do we go?" Fair question. The honest answer? No map, no coin, no friend with a roof and a fire. The better answer was the one I handed her. Next yard with a clock in it. I flexed the bare wrist that should have worn 413. Then the one past that. So this is my oath, and I'll speak it once into the cold where the frost can witness. Every iron Aldous Crane ever stamped, I will read aloud until it dies in the fist that swings it, and I won't stop at the district line, and I won't stop at his door. Limestone dust coats the backs of my hands white. I'm crouched in it, a stranger's chained forearm turned up under my thumb, reading the brand the way I once read a margin nobody else bothered to open. This one's stamped clumsy. Good. Clumsy I can work with. The quarry drops away below us in gray steps, men strung along each ledge by one shared chain, picks going dull against the stone. Mara holds the far end of the line steady. Jas kneels at my shoulder, breathing hard through his split lip, watching my mouth like it owes him money. Say the words back to me, I tell the woman whose arm I'm holding. Just the words. I do the rest. She says them. The consent recital. The same crooked grammar Crane's house uses in every district. I let her reach the hook, then I finish the sentence the way it was always meant to finish. Void from the first stroke. The brand grays, bare skin under my thumb. The iron clamped to the overseer's belt goes cold in its loop, and I watch the frost bloom crawl across the stamp. Then the howling starts. The overseer comes down the ledge 2 steps at a time, brass whistle shrieking between his teeth, a tally book flapping in his fist as if paper could stop me. "Wardens! Wardens! He's loosing the gang! He can't name it. Nobody drafted him the word for what I'm doing. "Next wrist," I say. A man with a crushed thumb lays his arm across my knee before I ask. I read it. I recite. The brand dies gray. Another iron quits cold somewhere up the line. 2. 3. Stop his mouth! The overseer grabs Joss by the collar and hauls him backward off his heels. Joss twists, bare wrist flashing, and the man's fingers won't close on a thing that owes him nothing. He lets go like he touched a stove. I keep moving down the chain. Forearm, words, gray, cold. Forearm, words, gray, cold. Every link I reach is a back that wasn't walking with me a minute ago and is now upright in the dust. Every dead iron is one more of Crame's warrants punched in the butt end, quitting cold, mine to set on a table when I find a table worth the name. Here's the part nobody told the lawyer. I started this morning counting freed wrists. Easy math. 1, 2, 3, simple as ledger ink. But each iron I kill drops into a second column, and that one I can't total. What does a man owe for stamping his name on 1,000 hooks? I haven't built the charge. I don't have the figure. I just keep adding rows I can't sum, and the not knowing sits heavier than any number I've ever carried. You hear me down there? The overseer's voice cracks high. Wardens are coming. They're coming for all of you. Then I'd better read faster, I tell him, and reach for the next arm. 6 irons cold in the dust now. 7. The line behind me stands up rung by rung, bare-wristed, blinking in the white glare like they've come up out of deep water. The overseer stops shrieking. He's gone still at the lip of the ledge, whistle dead between his teeth, staring past my shoulder at the quarry road below. I follow his eyes down. Dust on the road, a wall of it. And under the dust, the dull wink of a great many irons, moving up the grade toward us at a trot. Sworn true under the seal of the crown. I read it off the butt end of the cold iron in my palm, the words ringing the dead stamp in letters no bigger than barley grains. Around me, the freed gang has gone still. They're watching the dust climb the quarry road. Mara keeps both fists locked on the chain line. Joss crowds in at my shoulder, breath whistling through his split lip, and the overseer stands frozen at the ledge lip with his whistle dead between his teeth. I should be on my feet, running like a sane man. Instead, I'm turning a dead iron over in the white dust, reading the line some Smith stamped there because the law made him, and nobody ever bent close enough to care. Sworn, I say, out loud. Not claimed. Sworn. Joss blinks at me. Does it matter? Oh, it matters. Let me tell you about the word sworn. A claim is a man pointing. You argue a claim, you weigh it, you let the other side shove back. A thing sworn under seal is something else. There, the issuer stakes his own name on the truth of it. The Crown didn't ask this gang to obey. The Crown swore in iron that the hold was good. I just read that hold void from the first stroke. I sit back on my heels. The math turns over slow, then, all at once. Joss, the brand I killed a minute ago. What did it swear it was? Good. Lawful. Crane's warrant. Sworn good. And it wasn't. I lift the iron so he sees the frost still crawling the stamp. A thing sworn false under the issuer's own seal isn't an empty brand. Back home it had a name. It was a charge against the one who swore it. The dust on the road is closer now. I can hear the irons jingling under it. I don't care. For one clean breath, I genuinely do not care. Because the column I couldn't total this morning just grew a unit I can count. Every cold iron in this dust is the Crown's own oath, broken in the Crown's own hand. Not a freed wrist subtracted from Crane. A sworn defect, added against the throne. One count, then another, then 7, lying gray down the line. I can total that. After all morning carrying a number with no bottom, I can finally total it. Give me that. I pluck the tally book out of the overseer's slack fist before he thinks to close it. The same flapping ledger he waved at me like paper could stop a sentence. I thumb it to a clean page. I wet the stub of his pencil against my lip. At the top, I write one word: owed. Under it, I set the first row. Not a name, a defect. Sworn, witnessed, cold in the dust. Then the second. Then I count down the line of dead irons and write the number where it can be added to. Joss stares at the page like it might bite. What is that? The bill, I tell him. It is. Every iron Crane ever swore true, and I've read false, is a line in this book now. And the debtor at the foot of the column isn't a notary hunched at a table. It's the Crown that handed him the seal. They've stopped. Joss's whisper cracks. Why have they stopped? The dust on the quarry road doesn't settle. It parts. The column had been climbing at a trot. Now it splits down the middle, irons grounded, two ranks of wardens standing aside to open a clean lane up the white grade. I keep the pencil on the page. Old habit. Never look up before you finish the line. Then I look up. Something climbs the lane, and it isn't a horse. A chair. High-backed, black lacquer, hoisted on poles by four bare-backed bearers who take the quarry road one careful step at a time. A man sits in it. Notary's gray. Soft hands folded on his knee, a seal ring the size of a walnut riding his right thumb. I know the hands before I know the face. I argued 10,000 pages across a table from those hands. Hello, Tomas. And there it is. Aldous Crane, the man who taught me to read a contract the way a butcher reads a carcass, where it joins, where it parts. The same man who, when the wreckers paid enough, sold our firm and slid my own street onto the demolition list, without one tremor in that soft hand. Here, breathing, same gray eyes, patient as ever, lifted into the chair that seals every iron in this realm. He isn't looking at the freed gang, not at the irons frosting in the dust. At me. At the tally book open across my knee. His mouth curves, unhurried, glad. He smiles. You always did read to the end, he says. I warned them. The boy in 413 will be trouble, I told them. They laughed. A serf who can spell. His head tips toward the book. What are you writing, old friend? Mara's knuckles go white on the chain line. Joss has stopped breathing beside me. The overseer drops to one knee in the dust, his whistle clattering loose from his teeth. I lift the tally book so the gray eyes can find the word at the top. A bill, I say. Yours. The smile doesn't break. It deepens. Crane sets the walnut ring against the chair arm and pushes himself up. The bearers go rigid. He steps down, one gray slipper, then the other, onto the ledge, into the white dust, closing the last of the road between us to nothing. Wonderful, he says, and holds out his open hand for the page. Then let's read it together. You never could finish one without me. His hand stays open between us, palm up, waiting. I press the tally book flat to my ribs. Read your own copy. Crane doesn't reach for it. He never reached when he held the stronger claws. He turns his thumb instead, slow, and the walnut ring rolls up into the light. A warden darts up the lane with a wax tablet raised flat on both palms, practiced. They've run this drill 100 mornings. Crane sets the ring to the wax and presses. Behind me, a man screams. I spin. The gray-bearded one, bare-wristed a heartbeat ago, I read his iron dead with my own mouth, is clawing at his forearm. The brand is back. Not frost this time. Fire.
Smoke curls off his skin, and the iron I killed sinks its teeth a second time, deeper, while he folds over it. Then the next man, then the next. Down the freed line it runs, wrist after wrist relighting, 7 throats catching the same ragged note.
He didn't read my bill at all. He stamped straight over it. You can't rebite a void, I say, and my voice cracks on the word. You can't. Crane's mouth stays gentle. I can. Different office. He lifts the ring toward Mara. She throws her wrist up to meet it, chin out, ready to burn for the principal. Nothing takes. The wax cools gray on her skin. His ring passes over Joss the same way. Over me. 3 brands he cannot light, and for one breath those patient eyes go flat. So he quits trying to write us in. Note it, he tells the warden, not looking from my face. Number 413 does not answer to a seal. Then 413 is not on the rolls. His soft hands fold back together. An unregistered body. No deed, no master, no standing to be owed or to owe a thing. That's not annulment, I say. That's just pretending I'm not standing here. It's tidier. He smiles like he's proud of me. You taught me half of it across that table. A thing the ledger refuses to name cannot file a claim, cannot be freed, cannot be murdered. There's no one there to murder. His head tilts a careful degree. So no one answers for clearing it off the road. He raises one gray hand, only lifts it. Down the white grade, the split column slams shut and pours upward. Not 2 tidy ranks now, a gray flood, whistles already shrilling, short irons drawn and bare. Seal wardens. More than the whole 3rd District yard ever held. More than I can total, and I total fast. A clerical error is loose in my district, reading my stamps backward to the help, Crane says, watching them climb. Errors get struck, quietly, the moment they're seen. He steps back toward the lacquer chair, finished with me, settling his slipper into the dust as if the morning's only chore is done. Run, Tomas. He doesn't raise his voice. You always did read faster than you ran. Mara's hand clamps hard around my arm. The first whistle breaks over the ledge, close, and the gray is already on the white grade, coming. He thinks I scatter. That's the whole con buried in the word run. One body, one direction, alone. The kind of stray a clerk strikes off a roll nobody admits to holding. Mara's already dragging me off the ledge. We go. Down the broken cut where the grade splits, loose chalk skidding under my boots, the tally book mashed to my ribs hard enough to bruise. Whistles climb behind us. The gray flood pours up the grade while we pour down it, and for one ugly heartbeat, the arithmetic says I end here. Struck quiet, an error owed to no one. Then I hear the feet. Not scattering into the scrub the smart way, every man his own road. Behind me. All of them. Joss swings out to the low side and shoulders the slow ones forward. The chain gang knots in tight, bare wrists and burned wrists together, breath ragged, boots hammering the white. The gray-bearded man, the one whose iron sank its teeth twice, comes off his knees and runs anyway, the fresh brand smoking on his forearm. He doesn't run from me. He runs at me. You! He fists my sleeve. Soot on his teeth, fire on his arm. It bit me twice. Put that down, too. I nearly go over a chalk slab. Now? You want me filing on a dead sprint? Especially now. He slaps the ledger flat against my chest with his good hand. Twice is 2 crimes. You're the one who said a void can't bite. So that's 2. 2 crimes. 2 rows. The bill just gained weight, and the man carrying the wound is the one demanding it get itemized. So I run, and I read. I flip the book one-handed, drag the pencil. Rebrand over annulled iron, sworn defect, debtor, the crown. The line goes crooked. The line goes in. The charge sheet doesn't get lighter when you're chased. It gets longer. Mara snatches the book from me at the next drop, pencil clamped in her teeth, marking strides I can't spare a hand for. Then it's Joss's. Then back to mine. We pass it down the line like a bucket on a fire, and every set of hands that touches it adds an arm. "His name's Edwin," somebody pants, pointing at the gray beard. "Edwin Cole, write the name." "And mine, Tam, the Saltmarsh warrant." I can't write fast enough. I love that I can't. Below us, Crane's voice rises, soft, sure, telling his wardens, struck quietly the moment they're seen. Quietly's gone. We are 40 feet of loud, every wrist swinging one direction, every voice naming itself into evidence as it goes. He wanted an error alone on the road. He's got a cohort with a council and a ledger growing fat between their fists. The book comes back to me at the lip of the cut, warm from a dozen hands, heavier by every burn he lit and every brand he couldn't. I get my thumb on the page. I plant a line that won't smear. Every arm goes in, I tell them, and my voice carries clean over the whistles. Every iron he kills, every one he can't. We carry the bill, or we carry nothing. And I am not setting it down until the crown signs at the foot. 9 throats answer me down the white grade. Every arm. Be it known to no registry, the ground hereinafter bounded is hereby no ground at all. I test it on the ash first. Say it aloud. Wait for the sky to fall. The sky stays up. We hold the chancery now, Crane's 3rd district seat, or the black bones fire left of it. 3 posts standing, the slate roof down in a heap. The long oak register table scorched but square on its trestles. Smoke still leans off the beams. Dawns come up the color of dishwater. The whistles went ragged on the grade an hour back, then stopped. 40 of us crowd a room built to grind 10,000. Mara drops the seal press on the oak with a thud I feel in my teeth. The crown's own press, heavy as a millstone, pried off the dead clerk's belt. Joss holds the doorway with a warden's short iron loose in his fist. Edwin Cole sits in my sideline, the twice-burned arm against his chest, watching my pencil like it owes him money. "You swore you'd file till the crown signs at the foot," he says. "I see no crown." "You won't. I'm not suing them." I smooth the charter on warm oak. I'm taking the ground out from under the claim. In the corner, the chancery's mere stone still hums. You feel it more than hear it, a low drag in every branded wrist, the registry leaning on its leash. Edwin's fresh iron weeps a thread of smoke that bends toward it. The crown still sees this dirt. That's the problem on the table. I start the bounds. Give me corners, the elm, the chalk cut, the old Saltmarsh post. My own hand stops. Wrong. Name a corner and you've named a parcel, and a parcel is a thing they can lift back onto the roll. Mara leans over my shoulder. Then name nothing. Then name nothing. I tear the line out and write it the other way round. The parcel isn't the field. It's the hole where the field's number should be, the patch of earth the registry never wrote down. Edwin half rises. That's a swindle. That's their swindle. I'm just running it backward. I keep the pencil moving. Every claim they hold runs to a number on a roll. No number, no claim. You can't reclaim a thing the law swears was never there. Land's got to vest in someone, Tam says from the wall. Got to have a holder. In no one the crown admits exists. I look up at them. Burned wrists, struck names. Every error Crane swore off his roll with that soft gray voice. He called you voids. Said a void can't be murdered, can't be owed, can't be answered for. Fine. A void can't be evicted either. You hold ground that isn't there, and there's no door he can come and put you out of. It travels the room. I watch it go, wrist to wrist, the same slow lift of the chin. So I write the holders as the unregistered, and the bounds as the unmapped. Every clause that should leave a handle for some clerk to grab, I file flat to the page. Then the foot of the charter, the signature line. And here's where I want to laugh, because Crane built me the one desk in the district that could do it. The press. A crown seal makes a claim real. I'm going to make one unmake itself. Mara inks the plate. I set the charter square beneath it. Witnesses put a thumb to the foot, I tell them. Not your names. Your numbers, the ones he's struck. Edwin presses his soot-black thumb down first, then Tam, then a dozen, then the rest, a ladder of dead numbers climbing the margin, every one a man the registry says it already crossed out. I bring the press down. The seal bites the page. The mirror stone in the corner quits humming. Just quits. The drag dies out of 40 wrists at once. Edwin's arm stops smoking mid-breath, the thread of it hanging, then coming apart in the still air. Down under the floor, the frost that never broke all winter shifts and ticks, settling the way a held breath goes when you finally let it out. Mara's hand finds the doorpost to steady on. What did you do? I lift the page. The ink's dry already, which it has no business being. There's nothing here to reclaim, I say. I didn't win the ground off the crown. I wrote it off the map. Send every warden they've got. The law will meet them at the edge and tell them there's no place here to come and take. And out on the white grade, a whistle goes up to call the line back in, and breaks halfway, because the men blowing it just felt the dirt under their boots stop belonging to anyone alive. Tomas. 2 men at the well, and one's swinging a bill hook. Joss says it from the doorway, the short iron loose in his fist. The frost's gone soft under my boots for the first time all winter. They came up the white grade all night, struck off folk in 2s and 3s, then 6s, drawn to the 1 acre that belongs to nobody alive. 40 of us yesterday, closer to 90 by this gray noon, and 90 throats want 1 bucket. I put the pencil down and go out. The well's a stone ring with a frayed rope. A Hallowfield man has both hands on it. A newcomer with a billhook says the water's his. He walked 4 days, his children with cracked lips behind him. Same burned number scar on both their wrists. Same crown that crossed them out. Hook down, I say. He doesn't move it. You walked 4 days. He's been here since the roof came off. The well belongs to neither of you. Then whose? No one's. That's the whole game. I crouch and draw a line in the mud. Water by turns. Hallows at dawn, the grade folk at noon, the late ones at dusk. Break the turn, you answer to the table. What table? I point back at the scorched oak on its trestles. That one. It's the only law you've got left, and it doesn't care what they branded on you. The billhook comes down. Slow, but down. So that's how I spend the morning. Not suing a crown, but cutting bread. I go back to the warm oak and start a second sheet under the charter. Who draws water and when? Who holds the grain? That a man's old number on the crown roll buys him nothing here, because here the roll is dead. I write it plain, in clauses a frightened man can read aloud. Edwin reads each line over my shoulder and grunts when it holds. Behind me, Mara works the press, inking the plate and setting each clause in lead as fast as I cut it, so a corrected line comes off black and clean before I've blown the pencil dust off the next. Then a shadow falls across the page. Big man, fresh up the grade, a hand axe through his belt and 40 of his own at his back. Garrick, the well man, calls him. He plants both fists on my table. "Heard a clerk's playing king up here," he says. "I held my own crew 3 winters with no clerk. Why's you're scratching the law and not my axe?" "Because your axe needs a man to swing it." I don't stand. Standing's what he wants. Mine doesn't. You go, the axe goes. The page stays on the table, and the next man reads it. That's the difference, and it's the only one that's ever mattered. He chews on that. Around us the room's gone quiet, 90 branded faces watching to see which way the floor tilts. "Put your number to the foot, or don't," I tell him. "But if you take the well by force, you're the crown wearing a different coat, and every soul here came up that grade to be done with the crown." Garrick looks at his own crew, reads it in their faces faster than in mine. He drags a sooty thumb down his sleeve and presses it to the margin. A dead number, climbing the ladder beside Edwin's. I almost breathe. That's when the dull gray light of the door goes dark, and the room turns as one. A horse on the white grade. One rider, walking it slow, in a clean clerk's coat that's never seen a forge. No warden's iron on him. Something worse, a flat leather roll across his knees and a seal box at his hip. He doesn't stop at the edge. He rides to the broken posts, dismounts, and the soft frost takes his boot print like the dirt still answers to him. Joss steps to block him. I lift a hand. Let him come. He doesn't look at the 90. He looks at the table, at the charter, at the press, squatting on the oak with Mara's inked hands gone still on it, and something twitches at his mouth that isn't quite a smile. "You'd be the filer," he says. "Crane's desk. He spoke of you. Crane's not here to speak of anyone." "No." He sets the roll on my table, beside my own work, careful, the way you'd lay one knife next to another. He thumbs the seal box open. Crown wax, red as a brand fresh out of the fire, and he cracks it under his nail without ceremony. "I'm not here to argue your clever hole in the map. I'm here to fill it." He unrolls the writ. Reads, not loud, which is how I know it's real. "By order of the registry, every soul standing on this ground to be entered on a new roll, numbered and sealed by the next new moon." He rolls it shut, lifts his eyes to mine, and past me to all of them. "Bring your wrists to the survey stake of your own will, or the wardens come at the new moon and bring you. Register." He taps the dead seal on the table, the one we killed. "Or be registered." The dead seal sits between us, cold wax we killed yesterday, good for nothing now. He doesn't touch it. He reaches back into the leather roll and draws out a second sheet. Heavier, stitched at the spine with red cord, the loops cramped and mean. I know that hand. Crane drew this one himself. "You wrote this dirt out of the roll," the writer says. "Clever." Crane said so. He lays the new sheet flat over my charter, edge to edge, like he's covering a card. "So he stopped arguing with your hole. He decided to fill it." "Fill it with what?" "Read the heading." I do. 3 words in lead-black ink. By total cadastre. You want to know what a crown does when you cut a hole in its map? It doesn't sue you. It pours the rest of the map into the gap. He lifts the live seal from the box at his hip. Red wax, still soft, a thumbnail of fire he's kept warm against his ribs. He doesn't press it to the page. He turns, kneels at the broken post, and pushes the seal down into the frost. The ground drinks it. Then the floor moves. Not a shake, a crawl. Out past the posts, the white grade shrugs the way a sleeping ox shifts its haunch, and a long black lip of soil rolls up over itself and starts toward the table. "Off the line!" I'm up now. Standing's no advantage here.
There's nothing to face.
Garrick doesn't wait for me. 3 winters of crew bossing don't ask a clerk's leave. He swings the hand axe down into the crawling earth, a good clean stroke, and the blade bites and sticks and the dirt folds over the steel and pulls it out of his fist like a tongue taking salt. He stares at his empty hand. What in? Don't fight it. It isn't a man. Joss stabs his knife into the rising clay. The clay climbs the knife, climbs his wrist. He rips free and stumbles back into Edwin, both of them shoving toward the oak, toward the one square of ground that's still ours. The soil comes over the edge of the written-off line and keeps coming. Frost-stiff topsoil, then the wet black under it, then stones. Flat survey stones, worms threaded white through them, all of it turning inward, all of it crawling to swallow the place I unmade. The registered land. Still cranes. Still answering his seal. And every grain of it ordered home to fill my gap. A woman screams behind me. Children up on shoulders. 90 souls pressed back against 3 posts that won't hold a wall of earth. And there's no wall to push, no throat to grab, no door to bar. Tomas, Mara's voice, flat with the press still under her inked hands. It's at the trestles. I look down, clay licking up the table legs, reaching for the scorched oak, reaching for the charter. And here's the thing nobody up that grade understands except me. I never owned a blade worth a copper. Crane didn't build me to swing. He built me to read. So I read. I snatch Crane's decree off my charter and turn it to the gray light, eyes tearing down the lines while the floor eats the room. Total cadastre. All bound land within the survey to reclaim and resettle the unmapped void. There's the verb. Bound. He can only move dirt the registry still holds. Dirt that's still on a roll. Dirt that still answers. Which means somewhere in these clauses there's a corner he didn't bind, a parcel he forgot to number, a seam I can pry. Because Crane is fast, and Crane is cruel, and Crane, God love him, is sloppy in the same spot every single time. The clay reaches my boot. Cold soaks through to the toes. I find it. Line 4, a survey reference, an old district's number Crane copied from a 40-year map without checking, and my pulse goes loud in my ears, because if that number's wrong, then a strip of this ground was never his to call home, and a strip is all I need. I open my mouth to say it. The earth comes over the table and takes the page out of my hands. Line 4, I say, loud as I can drag it up. I read it before you took it. The rider's kneeling at the broken post, both palms in the frost, feeding the seal. He doesn't look back. The clay's at my knee now, cold, straight to the bone, climbing the table legs, reaching for the scorched oak where my charter sits. District Survey 941. I plant my boots and let the number ring. That's Crane's citation. That's the leash on every grain crawling at us. All bound land within the survey. His own hand wrote the limit. It's bound. He presses harder, hurrying the ground. Bound, rolled, and his. Dirt doesn't argue, clerk. Dirt doesn't. The black lip rolls over the trestle. Maps do. I'm talking fast now, the way I used to talk with a judge's gavel already lifting. 40 years ago, 941 was the river meadow. Crane copied it off an old chart and never once walked the line. The river jumped its bank. They cut a new survey, gave it a new number, and nobody told the dead map. You're stalling. I'm reading. I drop my hand into the muck at the boundary, where the soil humps toward the oak. This strip under your knees got re-rolled. It hasn't answered to 941 since before you were weaned. So your decree cites a number that doesn't live here. He twists around. First time his clean collar's gone crooked. Hear me witness it. I lift my voice over the screaming, over Mara's flat call, over the grind of stone on stone. This ground is uncadastered. No number holds it. No roll answers for it. The decree moves bound land, and this is not bound. The crawl reaches the meadow seam. It stops, not gently. The front grain of it strains forward, soil heaping against nothing, white worms turning in the cold. Then the whole black wall meets a line it can't read and folds back on itself, like a wave breaking on a shore of glass. Silence where there was grinding. 90 people holding their breath at once. No. The rider's on his feet. He shoves both hands deep into the frost and throws his weight on the seal. Move! Move, damn you! The ground doesn't move. He claws for the decree to check me, to read the number himself, and the earth's already eaten it. His master's red cord sucked under the surface, the proof of the citation buried in the one strip it has no power to take. I get up out of the cold, knees soaked, hands black to the wrist, and for the first time since dawn, I'm not gripping anything but air. Garrick. My voice comes out level. Off the table, onto the meadow line. Stand where the number ends. The crew boss looks at his empty axe hand, then at the dirt sitting dead at the seam. He doesn't ask the clerk's leave this time. He just steps over the stopped wall and his boot lands on ground that holds him. Move them, I tell him. All of them. They come. Off the 3 posts, off the unmade acre, pouring onto the strip the crown forgot to renumber. Children down off shoulders, Joss half carrying Edwin, Mara still cradling the dead seal press against her ribs. Every boot lands and stays. No grain rises to swallow them. No roll anywhere can call this dirt home. The rider stands alone on the dead front of his own flood, splashed black to the waist, staring at a border he can't see and can't cross. By the new moon, he says. The iron's gone out of it. By the new moon, I agree. I wipe my hands on my coat, slow, the way I used to set down a winning brief. Come back then. Bring a map somebody actually walked. We stepped off the acre I unmade onto ground his master never numbered, and the free parcel didn't just hold. It grew. You ever watch a man run clean out of paper? I had, just now. The rider had conceded, by the new moon, and turned for his horse. 3 steps, reins in his fist. Then he stopped. He came back. Not to argue. His mouth had quit arguing the second the clay died at the seam, and his master's red cord went under. He reached inside his coat, past the breast where the Ritz rode, and drew out something the wrong weight for paper. A black disc. Wax the color of a scorched kettle, thick as my thumb, the broken halves of a courier's tube cupped in his glove. You read maps, clerk. His voice had gone quiet, and quiet was worse. Read this one. He didn't offer it. He set his thumb in the wax and pushed. My wrist answered before I did. The brand, the rune they sear into every counted soul, mine with the rest, went hot. Not the old warmth. Hot. A coal laid flat to the bone. Down the meadow line, 90 people grabbed their own arms in one breath. A child shrieked. Garrick swore and clamped his crew mark white-knuckled. That's not the cadastra, the rider said. The cadastra only reads numbers. He turned the broken seal so I caught the device stamped in it. Not a district mark, not a survey ring, but an old crowned knot. The first one. The one every other seal in the realm is a copy of. This is the hand that wrote them. I felt it go. Not in the ground, under it. Beneath the strip the crown forgot to renumber. Something vast rolled over and woke. The dead press against Mara's ribs never stirred. It didn't need to. Every leash in the district, slack since the mirror-stone went quiet, drew taut at once and pointed the same way. At me. "Read it," he said again, almost gentle. "There's no number in it to break. It doesn't cite a survey clerk. It makes them." Crane signs the master seal, and your no place gets a name with the rest of the world. Every district rebound, every soul re-rolled in a single stroke. Mara's eyes found mine over the cold press. Joss had Edwin's whole weight on his shoulder, and nowhere on the line to set him down. I made myself breathe. Hands black to the wrist, brand burning, and for once not one clause in front of me to read. "Then it's not served," I said. "Wax that isn't pressed is just a candle. It's being pressed now." He climbed into the saddle and looked down at a strip he still couldn't cross. The horse stamped on bound ground a yard off the seam. A founding seal takes a day to set, maybe two. He gathered the reins. "Walk your map by then if you like. When it sets, there's no District 941, no uncadastered anything. There's only what the Crown founds fresh. And it founds you under it." He turned the horse. The brand on my wrist stayed hot the whole way down the white grade, throbbing once for every stride he put between us, counting down to something my charter had no number to stop. Frost held the road white. The rider's dot quit shrinking. Then it doubled. 2 horses climbed the grade now, and the second man rode like the cold worked for him. I knew the set of those shoulders before the face. The hand that taught me which line a number hides on. Crane. He reined up a stone's throw off the seam, on ground his survey still owned, and did not dismount. He looked at the strip. At the 90 boots holding dirt his map couldn't name. He smiled the way a man smiles finding a typo on page 9. "You wrote them into a hole, Tomas." Almost fond. "Clever. Holes get filled." The rider passed him the broken wax disc, both halves cupped careful as eggs. Crane drew a signet off his cold red finger. He didn't hurry. He never hurried. That was the whole horror of him. "Watch the valley," he said. "Not me. The valley." Down past the weir the Saltings folk had torn their roll a week behind us. 40 hearths, struck free, smoke going up crooked and glad. I'd heard the singing carry on still nights. Crane pressed his signet into the founding wax. The smoke down there bent. Then it stood up straight, all of it at once. 40 chimneys snapping to attention like soldiers called. A sound rolled up the valley that wasn't a sound. A click I felt in my back teeth. The crooked, free village squared itself. Lines I couldn't see ruled it into blocks. The singing stopped. A whole district, folded back into the roll between one breath and the next. "That's the hand reaching 1 mile," Crane said. He turned the signet a quarter turn in the wax, screwing it deeper. "Now it reaches yours." My brand went past hot, white. Down the line 90 throats made one short cry. The leashes drew, and this time they didn't just point, they pulled. "Hold the seam," I got out. "Boots stay on the—" Edwin went first. He couldn't help it. Joss had his whole weight, and Joss stood 3 feet from numbered ground. The hurt man's brand flared up through his sleeve, and his arm yanked sideways toward the line like a hooked fish. I lunged, caught his wrist in both my black hands. "No," I said, stupid, to a seal that doesn't take comments. "He's unregistered. He witnessed. Thumbprint, the charter, I filed him." The founding doesn't read filings.
It writes them. Edwin's boots scraped across the seam. One, then the other. He crossed onto Crane's dirt, and the number took him. I felt the click run up through his wrist into mine, a deadbolt thrown in his bones. His eyes found me. Then they went somewhere registered and small. Joss grabbed for him, too late, and the same pull was working Joss's own arm now. Two more down the line stumbled over before men could chain elbows and dig in. A girl, a gray-bearded Thatcher who'd thumbed the witness line at gray noon, dragged across the seam, branded white, reeled into a roll that had a slot waiting for each. We held the rest. Garrick threw his crew flat on the strip, bodies pinning bodies, fingers hooked in the frozen turf, and the founding's reach guttered at the seam it couldn't quite cross. Yet. It cost. God, it cost. I knelt on the line with Edwin's print still wet in my ledger, and Edwin himself standing 20 feet off on Crane's ground. Registered. Owned. Not looking at me anymore. Crane lifted the signet out of the wax, unhurried. He blew the founding cool and slid it back into the rider's careful hands. "A taste," he said. "Tomorrow I sign for keeps, and it pulls the lot of you across at once." He gathered his reins.
"Count your strip tonight, clerk. You'll find it shorter than you left it." He didn't gloat. That was the part that landed. He'd done sums his whole life, and the sum had simply come out his way. I looked down my own line. Yesterday the number of free souls had only ever gone up. I counted again. It had gone down, and 3 of them stood across the seam wearing the crown's count, staring back at me like I was the stranger. Here's the thing the registry primer never prints. A tally that falls once has learned the way down. The second drop comes easier. Night came blue and total over the strip. We fed the fire with the Chancery's burned third post. Already scorched, might as well finish the job. And the shaking lot of us drew in close without much to say. I counted heads. Bad habit, worse night for it. 127, where 130 had held dirt at gray noon. Then I made myself look the other way. Across the seam, 20 feet onto ground my charter couldn't name, 3 shapes stood in the dark wearing Crane's count. Edwin, who didn't turn his head. A girl somebody had stopped calling by name. And Penn, the Thatcher, who'd pressed his thumb to my witness line at noon with a hand like a bundle of dried roots. He stood straightest of the 3. I lifted my hand. He didn't lift his. "He can't see us," Mara said. She'd come up quiet at my shoulder, ink still black in the creases of her knuckles from the seal press. "Or he can, and there's no him left to do anything about it. I don't know which is worse." Joss sat apart, with his fists buried in his own hair. He'd had Edwin's whole weight and lost it to a line 3 feet away. Somebody finally said the thing somebody always says. "Tomorrow he signs, and it takes the rest of us anyway." A murmur went round the fire, low and agreeing. The sound of cold people deciding to be cattle, because cattle at least get counted somewhere warm. I felt it pull at me, too. Don't let anyone tell you the easy road doesn't sing. It's simpler to let the number have you than to keep being a number that bites back. So I did the one thing Crane ever actually taught me. Not loyalty, not the law, just this. Read past the line where they want you to stop reading. I got up. I went to the table. The scorched oak sat where it always sat, our one desk. The one he'd built me because he'd said I was the only filer in the district who could swing it. I dragged the candle close and opened the ledger to Penn's print, still tacky. Beside it I laid the writer's writ. Beside that, the crumb of founding wax the courier had shed on my table when he juggled the broken disc.
Tomas. Mara crouched across from me, her face orange in the flame. There's nothing to file. You watched it happen. It doesn't read your filings. It doesn't read mine, I said. That's a different sentence from, it isn't written down somewhere. She frowned. Fair enough. I barely had hold of it myself. I tilted the wax to the light. Prane had crowed about that knot, a seal that cites no number, that makes them instead of naming them. Grand. A thing that manufactures a count still has to declare where it files the count. And a thing that pulls a whole parcel across at once? I stopped. Set the candle down so I wouldn't drop it. Mara, say it back to me. What did he promise to do tomorrow? Sign for keeps. Flat.
Pull the lot of you across the seam in one go. Pull the parcel. Pull the parcel. And what did I write our parcel as? She went still. The fire popped. Down the line somebody coughed and rolled toward the warmth. No corners, she said slowly. No holders. You wrote it into the hole where a number should be. I tapped the writ. Line 4. The same stale survey that had already killed one of his seals today. 941, a map of a place that no longer agreed to exist. A founding reaches for a parcel the way a hand reaches for a cup. It needs the cup to have a rim. He's got a seal that makes any number he wants, I said. My voice came out steadier than my hands. Fine. Let him. Tomorrow he reaches down to grab this strip and pull it across. And there's no edge for his fingers to close on. You can't lift a hole by its corners. You don't know that's true. No? I pulled the ledger closer and licked my thumb. That's why I'm going to read every word he left on my table until I do. She looked at me a long moment. Then she pinched the candle's drip away so the flame stood tall and didn't gutter. And she stayed. The cohort breathed in the dark behind us. Across the seam, Penn the Thatcher kept his frost-gray watch over nothing. I bent to the small, crowded lines, and I started reading. Founded entire upon the grant of first cadastra and indivisible. I read it off the wax twice, the second time out loud so the words would stop sliding. What is that? Mara hadn't moved, but her voice had come closer. His bottom. The crumb was the size of a molar, and I'd burned my eyes raw on it. The crowned knot sat dead center. Around it, 3 rings of lettering, too fine for any fair hand. I'd taken the outer ring for ornament. Should have known better. A clerk doesn't carve words where nobody's meant to look. He carves them where he's betting nobody will. I tilted it into the flame. The grooves stood up in shadow. A seal that makes numbers, I said. Walk it back. Where's it get the say? Crane. Crane gets it from the crown. I dragged my thumbnail along the middle ring, picking out cuts. The crown gets it from the ring under that. Every founding cites the one it stands on. Down and down, all night if you let it. I stopped on the innermost line. Except it stops. Here. This is the floor the whole thing rests its boots on. Then it's bedrock. Flat, tired. He wins on bedrock, Tomas. That's the point of bedrock. That's where the cracks start, though. I bent so close the candle singed a hair. Read it with me. Slow. The first cadastra. The grant that named the first corners and turned a stretch of mud into a kingdom you could number. Old language, the formal kind. Every clause locked to the next. Then a word I'd written into 100 deeds in another life, on another ground, for men who paid me to make it mean what they wanted. Indivisible. I sat back. My breath went up white and hung there. What? Mara caught my wrist. Her fingers were cold as the table. You made a face. Filers don't make faces. What did you read? It's the same clause. The words came out of me careful, like I was carrying water in my hands. The exact one that killed his seal at noon. Line 4. A grant that only holds if it holds entire. You're talking deed talk. Then here's plain. I turned the crumb so the candle lit the cut word for her, though she couldn't read it and didn't need to. Some grants are written to come apart and still stand. One corner fails, you lose that corner, the rest survives. That's mercy, built in. The crown didn't build mercy in. I tapped the word. Entire, indivisible. It says, in its own founding hand, this kingdom is one thing, or it is no thing. Pull one void out of it, and you don't get a smaller kingdom. Mara's grip tightened. Down the line, a log settled and threw sparks. Nobody by the fire was listening. They were all watching Penn keep his frozen watch over a strip my charter couldn't name. "You get no kingdom," she said. "You get no kingdom." For a second, neither of us breathed loud enough to fog. "He made a hole today," I said. My pulse was going somewhere stupid and fast. 2 of them. He cited a dead survey on the writ, 941, a map that doesn't agree to exist anymore. And then, to show off, he reached down and tore 3 people clean off the count and left a gap where they stood. I lifted the writ and the wax crumb, one in each fist, and held them up to the same flame. An indivisible thing with a hole in it isn't damaged goods, Mara. By its own first word, it's nothing. It unmakes the whole grant it hangs from. "You can't lift a hole by its corners," she said slowly. "He just taught the realm to be a hole." I set both down before my hands shook them. He spent his seal proving voids exist. He spent it on us. And the title at the bottom of everything, the one the wardens ride for, the one Crane signs under, the one that lets a man strike a name off and call it law. That title says it can't survive a single one. The candle leaned in the draft. Mara didn't reach to steady it. "Then his deadline doesn't matter," she whispered. "Tomorrow. The for keeps signing. His deadline's the same knife I am now." I pressed my thumb flat on the inner ring, on that one tidy word, the way I'd once pressed a seal onto land I was taking from men who trusted the paper. He signs for keeps tomorrow. He founds harder. He founds harder. He leans more weight on a floor I can show is cracked clean through. Every soul he pulls across is one more hole in a grant that swore it couldn't carry even one. Across the seam, Penn the Thatcher turned his head. Slow, the first move he'd made all night. Toward the candle, toward us, like a man hearing his own name through deep water. I looked back down at the floor of the kingdom, small enough to lose in a fist. The crown's own title was void. Crane had a roll he could sign for keeps in the morning, and nothing underneath it to write the keeps into. "Off the seam, clerk." Crane's voice came down the grade ahead of him, riding the first gray light. Dawn. The frost had held all night and held still, every weed stem furred white. He came at a walk, the rider half a length behind. The master seal carried flat on 2 cupped hands, like a plate too hot to set down. Behind me, 127 pairs of feet went quiet. Mara stayed at my shoulder. Across the line, Penn kept his head turned our way, the way he'd turned it in the night. I walked to the seam, with the writ in one fist and the wax crumb in the other. "Morning," I said. "You're early for a man who's already won." He reined up at the meadowline and didn't smile. "I'm here to sign. The land comes across. Your charter ends at breakfast." He lifted his chin at the rider. "Said it." The rider knelt and set the master seal on the flat stone Crane pointed to. Crane swung down. His boots cracked the frost. He drew the signet off his glove finger and breathed on it, the small, private warmth a man gives a tool before he uses it. "Before you press," I said. "No," flat. He lowered the signet toward the crowned knot. "That seal cites the first cadaster." His hand stopped. a finger's width above the metal, the signet hanging there. Everything you've signed cites it. I went on, easy. Your roll, this writ, that seal under your thumb. Every founding leans on the one below it, down and down, all the way to the floor. You taught me that yesterday, crawling your border up this grade. I lifted the wax crumb so the gray caught the cut letters. I read the floor last night. You read nothing, but he didn't press. Indivisible. I said it slow, the way he'd say it to a court. The grant at the bottom of your whole kingdom holds entire or it holds nothing. No mercy built in. No losing one corner and keeping the rest. One void in it and the grant unmakes, top to bottom, your roll with it. Then it's bedrock and it never voids. His jaw worked. You can't make a hole in. You made 2 yesterday. That landed. I let it sit in the cold. Line 4 of your own writ cites Survey 941, a dead map, a hole where a number used to be. I turned the writ in my fist. Then you got proud. You reached across this seam and tore 3 living people off your own count to show me the trick. Edwin, a girl, pen, there, head turned, listening to you do it. 3 holes you punched yourself, into the one grant that swore in its first breath it couldn't carry a single one. The signet was still up. His thumb had gone white on it. Press it for keeps, I said. Please, I mean it. The harder you found this morning, the more weight you set on a floor you already cracked through. Every soul you drag across is one more hole in a thing that can't survive holes. You don't sign yourself a kingdom, Crane. You sign the proof it's already gone. He looked down at the seal on the stone. He picked it up, slow. He tilted the inner ring to the light and read his own founding word, the one I'd just read him. And I watched him find it sitting there, in his own crowned letters, exactly where I said it would be. The frost stopped being the cold thing between us. The cold thing was the metal in his hand. His mouth opened. Nothing formal came out. The rider, still down on one knee, lifted his face to his master and saw it change, and didn't yet know what he was seeing. Take it back, Crane said. Too quiet. He drew the signet away from the wax, not toward me, toward himself, the way you pull a hand off a stove. He'd had it carried up the grade in careful hands, warmed it with his own breath, nearly stamped his name across the bottom of it. The seal he came to bury me with was pointing the wrong way now, back up its own chain, straight at the fist that held it. Midnight. The same hour the brand clock once gave me, a fistful of minutes before it owned me for good. Only tonight, I'm the one walking it to a door, on time, early even. I'd spent the dark hours lacing the ledger shut, every annulled name Crane ever struck, copied clean, stacked thick, then bound under a doubled cord I cinched till it bit my thumbs. It rode against my chest like a paving stone. Mara carried the lamp at my shoulder. The frost on the chancery steps cracked under our boots, loud in a sleeping district. I'd counted on the registry being dark. It wasn't. Crane stood inside the rail, a fresh roll open on the counter, an inkhorn uncapped at his elbow. He'd come to file too. Of course he had. The new moon rode 3 nights off, and a man who loses an argument at dawn does his next reading by candle. You're trespassing, he said, not looking up. I'm filing. I set the ledger on the counter. The boards took the weight with a thud that stilled his pen. That's no instrument. He flicked the cord with one nail. Bound surf work. It enters nothing. It enters everything you struck. I worked the knot loose. The pages fanned open. Name under name under name. each one a brand he'd canceled, each cancellation witnessed in his own hand. Edwin Cole, the Saltings girl, Penn the Thatcher. Every soul you ever rubbed off the roll to make a void. I copied the lot. One filing, one charge, not 100 complaints you can lose in 100 drawers. His jaw set. He laid his own pen down, careful, the way you set down a thing you might still want to swing. File against whom? He said, quiet, feeling for the floor. The hand that signed every annulment. I turned the open ledger so the lamp lit the column of his initials marching down the margin. You witnessed yourself, Crane, page after page. I'm only stapling the confessions together. I thumbed to the back. My own number's in here, near the bottom. 413. You struck me, too. I file as one of the dead. He looked at the column. His thumb found the edge of his fresh roll and pressed it flat, buying a second, the way he'd bought one over the seal at dawn. Then he reached out and laid 2 fingers on my ledger, held it down to the wood. It wants the registrar's seal to be filed, he said, and the registrar is standing here, saying no. Mara's lamp didn't waver. The frost ticked in the dark behind us. I rested my hand on the cover beside his. Then seal it or don't, I said. The deadline's yours, not mine. By the new moon, every soul gets registered. You wrote that, your hand, your writ. Refuse my roll, and you miss your own date, and the warden's ride for nothing. Stamp it, and you stamp the proof that you punched the holes yourself. I leaned my weight down onto the cover, onto his fingers under it. 3 nights, Crane. Pick which way you hang. His fingers didn't move. Neither did mine. Out over the district, the brand clock turned its quarter, and for the first time since they burned a number into my arm, the counting fell on his side of the rail. So which of us blinks before the moon goes dark? Strike clause 9, Crane said, and laid his fingernail on the line. A filing wants a living plaintiff. The dead don't sue. I followed his nail to the word it pinned. Good. Let him choose the ground. Read clause 9 whole, I said. Your hand. A struck soul reverts to chattel of the realm. Chattel. Not nothing. Property. And property keeps an owner who answers for it. I slid my thumb down the column. The realm's the plaintiff. You file on its behalf every Friday. File now. His nail didn't lift. It moved. 3 lines down to a clause numbered in his own crabbed hand, and he tapped it twice like a man finding a rung in the dark. Clause 16. A complaint enters with 2 witnesses or it enters not at all. He almost smiled. You came up that grade alone, 413. The girl with the lamp doesn't count. Servants don't witness. Mara set the lamp down on the rail. Hard. The flame ducked and stood. I count nothing on her, I said. Turn to the back, Crane. To the void on Penn to Thatcher. Who witnessed the strike? I waited. He didn't turn it, so I did. And the page came up under the light with 2 names in the witness line. You. And you, secondhand, in red, the morning copy. You witnessed yourself twice on every soul you killed. 16 names short of a complaint? You're 100 witnesses long. The inkhorn sat at his elbow, uncapped, a skin already creeping over the black. His jaw worked once. He capped it. Then he reached past me and dragged the ledger a half-inch back across the boards, claiming it the way a dog drags a bone under the table. It's not on registry vellum, he said. Form 413. The realm doesn't read surf paper. Wrong skin, wrong ink, wrong margin. It binds nothing. Show me the writ that says so. It's understood. It's understood by you. I leaned in over the rail. Quote me the clause. Number and word. You've quoted me 3 already. You've got the whole writ behind your teeth. So name the one that throws out my paper, and I'll tear the page myself. He opened his mouth, closed it. And there it is, the silence where a clause should be, because the clause doesn't exist, because he never wrote a rule against the dead writing their own names down. Nobody expected them to read. You're stalling, he said, low. I'm the one on time. I tapped the cover. You're the one short 3 nights. That landed somewhere. His hand went flat on his own fresh roll, the one he'd come to file, and his eyes dropped to a line near its foot. His founding writ copied clean for the new moon. The big sentence. The one carrying the deadline that's gnawing both our ankles. He read it. I watched him read it and go still. By the new moon, he said slowly. Every soul registered. None struck standing. His thumb found a mark in the middle of it. A comma. One small black tick between registered and none. That comma's wrong, he said. It should join the clauses. 1 condition, not 2. Leave the comma. It's a copyist's slip. He picked up his pen. Crane. He didn't stop. He dipped and the nib came up wet, and he brought it down toward that single mark to scratch it out and close the gap, to make his own writ say something it didn't say an hour ago. I put 2 fingers on the page beside the comma. Not on his hand, beside it. Close enough. Go on, I said. Amend it. Right here, in front of the lamp and the girl who doesn't count. Scratch your own founding word the same week you swore it was perfect. I felt the boards cold under my knuckles. A title's only good while its maker stands behind every comma. Move that one, and you've told the realm the deed was crooked the day you stamped it. Which is the whole of my filing. You'll have signed it for me. The nib hung over the paper. A bead of ink swelled at the point and didn't fall. His hand was shaking. Not much. Enough that the drop wobbled and the lamplight caught it. Put it down, I said, or finish it. Either one files my ledger. Defend the comma, you defend my dead. Cut it, you confess the cut. I straightened. There's no third reading, Crane. You'd know. You wrote the book. The drop fell. It struck the margin clear of the comma and bloomed into a small black star. And he watched it spread and didn't blot it. Out over the chancery roof, the brand clock turned the half. 2 nights and a piece of 1. His pen still up, the ink still wet, and not 1 word of his own writ he could touch without putting his name on mine. So move, Registrar. The moon won't wait for you to think. Crane shoved his chair back. The lamp jumped on the rail. Mara's hand shot out and caught it before it rolled. He turned to the high shelf and lifted down the iron-bound roll. The Master Grant. Green wax the size of my fist, sealed and furred with dust, the crown's own title to the ground we were standing on. He dropped it on the boards between us. A gray puff went up and settled over the wet star of ink. You want a maker behind every comma. His palm came flat on the seal. Here's mine. I don't make titles 413. I keep them. The land is the crown's by grant, and you with it, and every name in that ledger with you. Strike my writ till dawn. This sits above it. Nothing your dead hold ever reaches the throne. Here was the thing I'd chased through a whole first life, the master deed nobody would let me near, and the man set it on the table himself and told me to look. So I looked. I peeled the wax aside. The grant ran 4 lines beneath it, the oldest ink in the room, brown as cold tea. I read the granting clause once, I read it twice. The second time, slow. Crane. Level. Easy. Who granted it? The crown holds by right of first taking. He said it like a prayer he'd worn smooth. Held of none. Granted by our own hand. Granted by its own hand. I set one finger under the words. And witnessed by? His eyes dropped to the line. The color left his face before he reached the end of it. Itself, I said for him. The crown took the ground, wrote itself the deed, and signed as its own witness. No grantor above it, no hand it held the land of. That's not a title. It's your comma copied bigger. A taking dressed up as a grant. I tapped the brown line once. Void at the root, Crane, and every brand struck under it is struck from nothing. That is treason. He lunged for the roll. I let him. The reading was already loose in the room, and you can't grab that back off a table. He got both hands on the seal and pressed, as if he could shove it down into something whole again. Under my sleeve, the rune on my wrist went cold. Not warm, cold. The heat I'd carried since the branding shed drained out through my arm like water finding a crack. Mara cried out and clutched her forearm. It's cold. It's gone cold. She wrenched her sleeve up. The mark there had dulled to the gray of dead coals, and along its edge the little freedom tally was filling, tick after tick, climbing on its own. 412 of them in this holding alone. I felt every one fall quiet at once, the way the struck names had fallen quiet in his ledger. Then it carried, past the wall, past the grade, out into the dark where 40,000 more brands were cooling in their sleep. 40,000 scales climbing toward open at the same breath. Because the deed they all hung from had just stopped holding anything up. Crane heard it. Don't ask me how. His head jerked toward the window. Put it back, he whispered. Put it back, 413. You don't know what you've... I know exactly. My wrist was ice, and I lifted it between us. You built this registry to guard the throne. Every soul, every grant, every taking, down in your own careful hand. You made the one record honest enough to prove where the chain starts. Over the roof, the brand clock threw its bells, all of them, out of turn. It starts at a theft. I laid my surf paper ledger down on top of the master grant, the dead's own names over the green wax, and this time his hands didn't drag it back. Your cadaster just took the stand, Crane, against the crown that paid for it. The green wax split under his palms, not along the seam I'd peeled, clean across the crown's own tower, a crack opening down the middle of the seal while he leaned his whole weight on it, trying to press it back whole by wanting it whole. It wouldn't go. 2 halves of a dead king's word, and his thumbs jammed in the gap between them. Crane? Quiet. Look at your hand. He looked. The signet on his right forefinger, the little keep that stamped every strike into law, had dulled to the gray of a banked fire. He twisted it, felt the cold of it travel up the bone, the same chill that had walked my arm a minute back, now lodged in the one ring that gave his pen its bite. He grabbed the pen anyway. I strike it. All of it. Back to chattel. Every name on your filthy page, struck, and strike it with what? The nib touched paper. Nothing bit. The ink sat up in a bead and rolled off the page, because the hand pressing it held its office of a grant that no longer held anything, and a clerk of a hollow seat is just a man dragging a dry quill. He bore down. The nib splayed and screeched, a scratch. No ink, no law, no line. It won't take, Mara said. Her lamp had gone still on the rail. She'd shoved her sleeve past the elbow and stared at her own forearm, where the gray brand was peeling up at one corner, one edge curling clear of her skin. Tomas, it's letting go of me. My name. First time in this world anyone had used it. I pushed my own cuff back, and the rune I'd rubbed like a deed my first hour off the branding bench was fading out, notch by notch, the freedom tally beside it filling its last marks and going quiet, not climbing anymore. Full. The scale a man's whole life had hung from, tipped over into open. Out past the window, the brand clock kept throwing bells, all 40,000 cooling at once, and Crane heard every one. The moon. He was on his feet, both fists ground into the broken wax, as if he could shut the realm by leaning hard enough. 2 nights yet. The writ stands to the new moon, registered or struck. That is the law. That is mine to... Your writ set the moon. I flattened my hand on the surf paper, the dead's names lying face up over the cracked green seal where his thumbs had been. Your writ hangs from this grant, and this grant never held. There's no clock to run out, Crane. You didn't lose the deadline. You lost the floor it stood on. His mouth worked. Whatever came out of it didn't carry past the rail. I took the pen out of his slack fingers, dipped it. For me, the nib bit, dark, clean, the way it had refused him, because the ground we stood on answered to no grant now, and ground that answers to no one waits for the first true hand to write its name across the top. I wrote it over the head of my ledger, in the oldest bare strip of the master roll, above 412 names and the 40,000 they carried. Entered this night, every soul herein, standing. Then under it, smaller, the line I'd come up the grade to set down. Held of no crown, held of themselves. You can't enter a thing, Crane whispered. There's no registrar to... There is. I didn't look up from the ink. You vacated the chair. I'm filling it the only honest way it's ever been filled, by the people on the page, with their own names, on ground that's theirs. I capped the pen. Servant lights it. Dead men hold it. The man who kept the strikes just witnessed the founding twice. Once when he set his master deed down to crush me. Once when his own hand wouldn't sign against it. He sat. Not in the chair. There was no chair behind him. He sat down on the boards beside his split seal, an old clerk with a cold ring, holding the dust of a title that had stopped being true the night he first stamped it. Mara lifted the lamp off the rail. The flame stood up tall and didn't duck. Light ran out across the master roll and the surf paper and the gray gap where the wax had been, and for the first time it fell on a deed that named the ground for the ones who worked it. I'd come up that grade a number. I came down a name, with the pen and the ledger and free ground under every foot of us, and 40,000 brands going cold in the dark. All of them mine to call neighbors now.